Honest Abe. Because Honest Abe was dishonest. He couldn't win the war. He couldn't save the Union without black power. So he put in place an emancipation, which was a war measure to arm us. We wanted to fight from the very beginning of the war. For 2 years, they kept us out of the war. And when we were allowed to come in the war, we saved the nation because 500,000 to 1 million white folks deserted the Union Army. And if black power had not been brought in, 250,000 official Union Army Navy troops, and another 250,000 spies, laborers, and hangers-on, it's that black power that allowed us to have the victory in the Civil War. And then our so-called great emancipator sent his general, Carl Schurz, to go into the Caribbean and South America and find a place to dump us after the war was over. So there's reason to hate, but you don't let that block your rise and your ascendancy, because we're in a period of what I call the Great Awakening. And that Great Awakening is based upon knowledge of who and what we are. And so that's what I want to lay out for you. I'm very excited to connect with Kermit, because by all intents and purposes, both of us should be wiped out. We should be on our knees begging somebody to forgive us. What did we say? We don't know what we said wrong. Please forgive us. But knowing the insanity of this world, we have just decided to bond together as brothers, bond together with our family, and build. But the most important thing is to build with a clear mind. And that's where we got problems. Somewhere along the line, from the African village, in the great trek down to the slave forts and dungeons, and in those hellholes, those concentration camps, waiting for those death ships to come in the night to take us across the Middle Passage, and in those plantations where we labored and worked to death, somewhere along that line, we lost our mind. And until we find it, we ain't gonna never be able to do what the Creator put us on this planet to do. We are the creation. Let me say it again. We are the creation. When you talk about the human family, it is us. Now, I have to come back at a later time, because I don't believe Black History is just a month, but I'll be back at a later time to deal with that. I'll be taking the work of Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop. There's an African origin of the human family. There's an African evolution of the human family, large brain humanity, Homo sapiens sapien, and there's an African cradle of civilizations. And when you master that knowledge, you'll be ready to move. And key to origin of humanity, evolution of humanity, and cradle of civilization is the economic question. And that's why I want to relate all these different things to you, but get back to the economic question. But you got to reclaim your fame. You got to reclaim even the Statue of Liberties in the harbor. I went to Mayor Koch and did battle with him, and he had a little Statue of Liberty on his desk, and I said, wait a minute, before we get into anything serious, we got to deal with that little image you have on your desk. He said, what image? I said, the Statue of Liberty. He said, what about it? I said, do you know about the Statue of Liberty? Of course I know about it. Well, what do you know? Well, it's in the harbor and welcome the immigrants. I said, well, you don't know much. If that's what you know, you don't know what the Statue of Liberty is, why it was there. Statue of Liberty comes out of that struggle in the Civil War, where African peoples were allowed to take up arms, or they just took arms. And they began to struggle for their humanity and for their future. And after the war was over in 1965, a Frenchman called Edward René Lefleuve de la Boulaye, who was a friend of America because he saw the potential, but he knew the difficulty and the contradictions of America. He wrote a 3-volume study of the history of America. He was a French parliamentarian. His best friends were Victor Hugo and other French libertarians. But more important than that, this Frenchman, Edward René Lefleuve de la Boulaye, who came up with the idea for the Statue of Liberty, was the head of the French Anti-Slave Society. He was willing to give his life to end slavery. There's no way in hell a Frenchman who was the head of the Anti-Slave Society and who was a principal fighter for freedom and justice, could have said, let's honor American immigrants and not refer to enslavement. Statue of Liberty doesn't have a damn thing to do with enslavement. It has to do with the struggle for liberation. And Bartholdi, the partner of Edward René Lafleur de la Ville, who was there in his house in Glenay in France near Versailles, who heard what his partner wanted to do, he began to think about how a great statue or a memorial should be built. And he went back to Egypt, where he had gone for the first time as a 19-year-older. He went back to Egypt to get re-inspired about monumental building. And then he came up with the idea of this monumental, colossal statue, but because of the blackness of the struggle and the wishes of de la Boulaye, the first image was a black woman holding the broken chains of enslavement. And when he brought that idea to America, there was no way in hell white America, who had won the war with our blood, as well as much of their blood, they were about to put us back into semi-slavery. They weren't about to have an image of black woman with the broken chains of enslavement as the link between France and America. And so he knew that, so he reworked the statue, particularly after 1870, because the French had lost the war to Germany in the Franco-Prussian War, and France had to give up their provinces next to Germany on the Rhine, Alsace-Lorraine. And he was from Alsace-Lorraine, so his mother was a captive of the Germans. And so when he knew America wasn't serious about a black image, he revised the image of the Statue of Liberty, because to fight the Germans, he organized a Masonic lodge. And so the revision of the statue was in the context of Masonry. He used his mother as the inspiration, his girlfriend as the model, and it was the Masonic movement that moved him. And so he put a torch of light in the hands and a book of laws under the arm. But to be true to de la Boulaye's wish of the statue referring to liberty and the freedom from slavery, the chains of enslavement still come out of the robe along both feet in the Statue of Liberty that's in the harbor today. Still there. And nobody ever references it. Yes, we need to clap on it. Nobody ever references it. Egypt, the Nile, has been an inspiration for so many. And it's hard for us to deal with it because